And here's part 2 of our conversation about whether drugs have changed you on We Need to Talk. Enjoy.
Now, we came up with some concepts, probably while very high, such as cold comfort.
Oh, yeah, that's actually on YouTube, I think.
Now, art has a way, if you perform the art or create the art while under the influence of perpetuating the whatever created the art in the first place. So that high does linger on and change perspective permanently in the fact that the art now exists.
And I think art can help change perspective in a lot of ways because, I mean, this is an issue I have to some degree, but it's like my perception isn't exactly that great sometimes. You've seen those like optical illusions where it's like, is this a cube or is the cube this way? Is it this way or is it this way?
Yeah.
Like, I can see more ways than that. I can, like, force my vision to be, like, many different perspectives. And it's kind of an issue I have sometimes, because sometimes I'll look at something in real life, and, like, my mind will make it into something else. Like, something which is not how it actually is. Like, my brain doesn't perceive it very well, or it perceives it a way alternate to how it should be. An example of that is, I mean, you can use this in general, but my brain does it naturally. So, like, have you ever been, like, at a restaurant and they have, like, mirrors on the wall to make the place look bigger?
Okay.
And then you look over and it just feels like there's an extra room over that way? Have you ever had that sensation?
No.
Okay. Have you ever been looking out a window and then you kind of get the sensation that the window's not there and then you actually perceive there being no window?
Okay.
You know?
I think that is a natural thing that happens to somebody with glasses.
Okay, true. Touché.
Or when you're driving in a car with the windshield, you're not looking at the windshield, you're looking through the windshield and you don't realize. Yeah, I get the concept.
But there's a perceptual change there as well. Like, it's not like just that you're looking at a mirror or that you're looking at the glass, but rather the glass isn't there, or there's an extra room there which you would see through the mirror. Or you could look at a mirror and see yourself in it. But then maybe you can do a perceptual change where you just see another person in it. It's like as if it's not a mirror. It's just as if like there's another compartment. You know, that mirror is kind of connected to another room where there's a you on the other side.
Okay.
So that's the kind of stuff I experience on drugs, and also I kind of get that stuff just in like real life. And I think some of those perspective changes are things which kind of help the artistic kind of notion because you're not judging the sensations in the same way that you usually do. You're not kind of forming them to be up these things. Like if you look out a window and you can't tell there's a window there, your brain fills in the window for you. But if you don't have your brain doing that for you, then from your perspective, there's no window there. In the same way, if you are playing music and you're just kind of in a drugged out state, you're not perceiving those sounds in the same way because it's not saying that's an E note or this is that. Rather, it's just actually perceiving the actual raw sensation. And whatever way it's perceiving it, it's going to be in a unique kind of way, which I think lends itself to kind of creativity through drugs.
I know a lot of times I choose to write when my brain is working too much. A lot of times, especially with emotions, it's very hard for me to decipher like what am I feeling? How do I express this appropriately? It's just an inherent part of who I am to not be able to do that very effectively. So I found that writing is a good way to do that, but it's very difficult to, without inspiration, to just write and to get out what I want to say in the correct way. But I found that alcohol helps significantly to be able to it just pours out at that point, and it feels so natural to just have things come out. Now, sometimes if a sensation is strong enough or it's been in my head long enough, I can just write naturally. And that always comes out better than if I write while I'm drunk. But it's also not possible sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that with alcohol is the inhibitions, because you're probably, when you're writing in a non-sober state, you're kind of like critically kind of analyzing everything you say. And it like nothing's gonna ever sound right because you're never gonna put it on pen to paper. Whereas if you're drunk and you're not thinking about what you're saying or not criticizing it as much, you're just gonna put it down, and it's probably gonna be somewhat decent.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that also a lot of drugs are able to narrow my mind down from I'm constantly thinking on conceptual levels of multiple things simultaneously, and I think that a lot of times drugs will help me to not do that, to be able to actually focus in on something. I feel like there's like an ADD model there of I'm thinking of too many things, so I'm not really thinking of anything versus being able to focus it down to think about one thing, which is why I like uppers so much, because they let me hyper focus my mind.
Caffeine will do that for me a lot of times. It depends on the dose and also the environment. Because for me, caffeine will allow me to focus. Like when I was on my vacation a while back and I wrote the Mental Hit app, it's like I had a lot of caffeine, but I also created an environment where I wouldn't get distracted, so I could like to stay working on the programming for a long amount of time. But if I were to take that same amount of caffeine and be at work, like I would be like distracted constantly. Because my focus is only good so long as there's something distracting me.
Caffeine's great for allowing me to multitask, which at my job, I have to constantly be doing that. So being able to be up on caffeine allows me to rapidly switch between things and then not keep it in the back of my mind so that I don't just forget, So maybe I'm writing this email, but then a call comes in, so I have to take the call. And then when the call's done, I have to fill out the form for the call. And then when that's done, I can go back to the email and pick up where I left off, because I've still been writing it in the back of my mind without realizing it. Caffeine lets my mind work on autopilot, where normally it would be much more difficult to do so.
See, it's like, it affects me differently, which is interesting, because kind of the same effect with the autopilot in a way. But on the other hand, it's like I can't multitask very well. I mean, there's a lot of multitasking involved in programming. So, in that way, yes, but I used to, have caffeine at work sometimes. I usually didn't, because I just felt like I was getting pulled in 6 different directions. Like I couldn't keep on the same focus. But when I did, people said I was kind of a douche. Like, because I'd start on one thing, then they would say, "Hey Nate," and then I'd be like, "What?" Like they'd like pull me away from what I was doing, and I'd get kind of pissy.
Yeah.
And so I guess I was more of a douche during that period. And then said, "No, Nate, stop! Don't drink caffeine, please. Don't.
I feel like as far as like marijuana goes, that really helps me to not have a bad attitude. It relieves. I am really, really, really anxious all the time. Like I always feel like I need to be doing more than what I'm doing. Like I'm not working hard enough. I could be working right now. I shouldn't be doing this thing. I could be doing this thing. Even if both things are technically work, I could be doing more. And I expect a lot out of myself. And I think that marijuana a lot of times helps me relax in a way that I'm comfortable just doing the thing that I'm doing. And that's really important for me to be able to unwind and be able to just focus on what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's something that I wish I had a bit, because I used to use marijuana for that purpose, but I don't really have anything nowadays. I mean, I wish it was meditation, because I try to be super into meditation and everything, but it's something that takes an active kind of duty to do. It takes active concentration, and you kind of don't exactly want to do it, whereas with a drug, like especially marijuana, you just take a couple puffs and then you're good, right? Like it acts on you. If it was a continual thing I had to do, that'd be different, but it's not. And I think that's the advantage of a drug to rewind or unwind,
or both. I mean, I know like uppers, like any of your ADHD medication or Molly or anything like that. Those help my brain like work really, really fast, but also focused. So I'm able to like, I'm fairly intelligent on a base level. It takes it like next level to be able to understand anything and do anything. And that's really the number one reason that though I lean that way more than with downers. Like even alcohol, I'm not a huge fan of. It helps it like I relax a little more, but I don't like the feeling as much as being up.
This is Jason Almy from Shit Happens When You Party Naked. We're a wild party show where we don't drink anything at all. Actually, we're totally sober, but we still manage to party and get wild. My wife does a fantastic Samuel L. Jackson impression. I double dare you, motherfucker. She's even better than that. I'm so sorry, honey. I fucked that one up. We also talk about nutrition, sex, jizz, penis. We bake cock-shaped cakes. Check us out, Shit Happens When You Party Naked, on iTunes, Google, Stitcher, Podcast, SoundCloud, Overcast, Undercast, Shitcast, whatever cast. We're on all the casts. Check us out. Twitter at SHWYPN. Keep listening to podcastnh.com, motherfuckers.
One difference I've had with amphetamines as opposed to caffeine is caffeine. Like, if I have a lot of caffeine, I'll be kind of like super anxious about it in a way. And so I can think kind of fast, but it's also like I'm driving on a slippery road. Like, I'm kind of all over the place. And I also like me talking really fast. Like, and then I said this, and like kind of like I've done sometimes on the podcast. But with amphetamines, maybe I'm talking fast. I mean, I'm sure if I had enough, I would be. But what it has done for me in the past, I was actually prescribed it for a time, which is the main reason why I had it, is it would kind of allow me to pace my thoughts. Like I could kind of have more control. I think the analogy I had is like right now, it's like, maybe not right now, but in general, if I have a thought, it's kind of like throwing a baseball out of my hand. And as soon as I start throwing that baseball and it leaves my hand, I can't control that baseball anymore. But with Adderall, it was like, or Ritalin, it was like I would throw that baseball, and then once it left my hand, I could still direct it through some sort of remote control. And maybe it wouldn't be perfect control, but I could still kind of direct where that baseball was going. So I had more control over the thoughts and the kind of rhythm and the kind of just the sphere of influence in general. So that was one difference with amphetamines as opposed to caffeine. I've never taken anything like MDMA, which I think you've taken before, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's Molly, yeah.
Yeah, which you said you feel happy and energetic. Was that right, or am I making that up?
Yeah, it's like Adderall, but it also adds in a level of happiness.
See, that I wouldn't like. It seems like too much.
I mean, when you're on it, it's not. The come down sucks, like most drugs. The after effects, it uses up all your serotonin, so it's harder to remain focused and happy afterwards. But I mean, if you're pacing yourself and you're not abusing, it's can actually be really helpful. And it's a lot of these drugs have a lot of really good medicinal effects, breaking people out of depression, cluster headaches, things like that are huge to be able to break up for some people.
True. I don't think I've ever felt happy, though. It depends on what you mean by happy.
You mean in general, or?
Well, no, not in general, but like I've on drugs, I've felt content before. And I think content is a little bit different because I've taken some uppers before, and it's like the feeling I've had was like more like, no, I don't need to do anything right now. I could die here. Just be fine. I can just sit here forever. No, whatever. I feel just very good about everything. There's no problems in life. I think that's euphoria, maybe.
I mean, that definitely sounds like contentment. Like you're satisfied with things as they are. I think happiness has a level of desire to it, where you want, like, you're content, but you also want more.
Yeah, there was a time when we had a sleepover at your house. And this was like the night of graduation. Like, we're supposed to. We did this whole thing to avoid, partying, but we had a party after anyway. And we smoked a lot of weed, and I snuck some alcohol from your mom's thing, and it was okay. It was allowed. I wasn't stealing, but
got it. You stole. Got it.
Okay, but I had a little bit of both, and just this weird feeling. It wasn't contentment. It was like something above that. It was like, I don't give a fuck. Like I don't know if that's the same feeling or if it's a different feeling, but it was like, I don't care about anything right now. Like, it wasn't like bad. It was kind of like, no, someone could like come in here with a gun. I wouldn't give a fuck. So someone could like give me like $100. I'm like, cool, thanks, man. It just be like that, like no fucks given.
Yeah, I mean that's like a next level complacency. That's borderline depression.
I don't know about that.
I mean, if you don't care if someone kills you, like that's about as nihilistic as you can get, isn't it?
I mean, well, is this like
nothing means anything? Who cares?
I was one with the world. I was the world.
Oh, I see. Okay. As far as we head towards the wrap here, as far as lasting effects go, I think that all of the drugs that I've done as a whole have changed my perspective as a human being on the world, and for the better. I think that I'm a better person now, and part of that comes from growing up and from maturing. And I think part of that I do owe to the different experiences I've had and the altered states of mind that I have had that have given me perspective I wouldn't otherwise have come across.
The biggest perspective change I've had, which is kind of a strange one, is that when I learned about drugs and what they could do to my perception, I thought to myself, people need to know about this because people think they're so confined in the ordinary views of things, and this shows that there's a whole world outside of themselves that they don't even know is possible. They don't even kind of comprehend in a way. And the fact that people just think so narrowly about things and how things should be, when you can easily take any sort of drug where it just kind of like fucks with you and you can flip things upside down. It's kind of like, what the fuck? It's just weird. Back then I was having this whole thing about people not being able to see reality. So this was my angsty high school days.
So I think the number one thing that drugs have changed my perspective on is drugs.
That's meta.
I mean, is it not true? How the first time you smoked weed, I believe it was in the woods out behind the house, and I did not, right?
Yeah.
And I was very against it and very disappointed in you.
Were you?
Remember? I told you that.
But you were having a party that night.
I think that was the second time, maybe. I don't know.
That was the first time.
It wasn't my party. Let's be clear.
Because we had we're getting some pseudonames here, but we had Tim and Simon who were over, who were the druggies.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a time that we had Tim and Simon over, and of course those are pseudonyms. And we went out into the woods and we smoked, and then later that night was when we had the party.
Exactly right.
Yeah, these are two separate events.
Well, they're the same event. They're a continuation.
Two separate events, Nathan. if I go to a soccer game in the morning and a different soccer game at night, that's not one soccer game. That's two different events.
For me, it was the pre-party.
Okay, fair.
But then later that night, I drank 7 beers, felt nothing. I got super pissed,
and there were G-bong hits in the basement.
Yeah, so they went down there. They found out I had never smoked before, so they gave me I had a big hit, way too big of a hit.
It was a G-bong, and it was aggressive.
But I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't think it affected me because it took 20 minutes for it to happen.
Yeah.
And so for a while there, I actually thought that it was the alcohol that finally hit me.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I was just really drunk.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really awkward time because it's I had a 5-second delay between what I was doing and what was happening.
I'm confident it was both. It was you weren't feeling the effects of the alcohol, and then the weed hit you and it made you super drunk too.
Maybe, but I'm not so certain about that because for a while I got the same effects as smoking weed that I did then. I mean, it was never intense as the first time. Actually, the second time was the most intense because then I got really stupid because I was smoking with, again, Tim and Simon and some other people. But it's they're veteran smokers, so they kept on smoking, and I kept on taking hits and hits and hits and hits, and I was going ham, and I wasn't feeling anything, so I kept on taking it. This was after 30 minutes, and you still don't feel anything? No. Then all of a sudden, oh god, fuck, and that was the most intense time I've ever had because it's my vision started doing spirals, things started spiraling and kind of 2D, everything became 2D for a little bit. And then things would zoom in, out, just distort in the weirdest ways. And the way it felt also was just kind of not right. It was very disconcerting.
We've definitely told these stories before. The time that I had to drive a buddy back home from your house, I believe. And I was super, super high. And I should not have been driving. And I saw a man in a sombrero dancing in the light that was shining on the yellow lines in the middle of the road, and that's what I was focusing on to keep me in the road was the Mexican man dancing in a sombrero.
So was that real?
That was real in my mind.
Okay.
Obviously, it wasn't real, but
so. I remember that happening, and I thought you were messing with us.
No, because I was real high.
I think our friend was like, dude, Steve, shut up. Stop messing with us. You're driving. Stop doing this.
I think he was trying to bring me back to reality so we didn't die in a fiery car crash.
Okay.
Which worked.
Because I thought you were fucking with us.
No, I was really seeing that, Nathan, and it was fucked.
So Steve almost killed me back in the day. Because
I almost killed us all.
Thank God for that man wearing the sombrero.
Thank God. He saved the day. Another night saved by Carlos Mencia.
Is he really Mexican though?
I don't know, probably.
Okay.
He stole jokes from Bill Cosby.
Who's Bill Cosby?
Jello Man.
Jello.
Jello pudding. So that's drugs.
Yep, drugs. Did we change your perspective on drugs?
Let us know at facebook.com/we need to talk show.
Or twitter.com/WNTT1.
Or, of course, you can find us at podcastnh.com.
There's many other podcasts on there, such as Shit Happens When You Party Naked, the Behavioral Observation Podcast. That guy is super smart.
He really is. There's Big Buck Registry, Fish Nerds. There's so many. The Plunge. If you guys like our comedy and you want to take it to the next level, but you're not ready for Shit Happens When You Party Naked, where they're the most vulgar absolutely possible, The Plunge would be a great next step. They're really funny. I highly suggest them.
You were on a recent episode of theirs, right?
I was indeed. They at the Podcast New Hampshire Meetup 2018. They recorded an episode with me and Jason, and that was a lot of fun.
I was in the room.
He was in the room, allegedly.
I recorded it, and they talked to me, but I'm like, I don't have a microphone.
Yeah, so I talked for you, and it was exactly what you would have said.
You guys made fun of me.
As we should.
You talked about Dito Angel.
We talked about Dito Angel, Aubrey Plaza.
It's pretty hot.
It was.
Is there any more that we have to talk about here?
No.
Okay.
Wait. Yeah, there is.
Oh,
Yeah,
what?
We need to talk.
Fuck.
Hi, my name is Derek from The Blaze Experience. The Blaze Experience is about gaming. I talk about video games, and the podcasts that I get into dive really deep into the games. So any games that I talk about, you're going to find a lot about the stats and different aspects of those games. For example, if I talk about guns in a game, it might be talking about the stats of those guns, why one gun is good, why one gun isn't good. And I get into a lot of different aspects of that other video game podcasts don't do. So if you want to find out more about me, you can find me on podcastnh.com. You can find me on Twitter at The Blaze Experience, BLAISE, capital XPERIENCE. And you can also find me on Apple Podcasts and many other directories.
TOBA.
You fucking nailed it. Man, you are the spelling master.
Yeah. Honestly, what I do nowadays is like I will just spell the wrong word purposely, and then I'll have either Google correct me or I'll have autocorrect correct me, or Microsoft Word or whatever. I know how to get it to pull up the right word by spelling it wrong. So that's how I use it.
The most annoying is when I spell a word and I'm like, this is a word most people don't use, so I spell it and it can't figure out what word I'm going, so I Google it and I'm like, oh, I spelled it right. They just don't have it in their dictionary because I'm smarter than Google.
What I also hate is when you have you spell a certain word and then it autocorrects to something else, which is like way more specific and out there. Like I'm just trying to spell the word the, and then like THE, and then it goes to like thesaurus. It's like no.
The.
Why don't we stress the? No.
Have you used Google like Gmail on a computer recently?
Yeah.
It has like the predictive, like what you're going to be saying. And it's actually really accurate. Like I'm typing out a thing and it's like, it guesses like 6 more words of what I'm going to say. I'm like, wow, that is what I'm going to say. Tab, and it fills the whole thing in. It's crazy.
I haven't seen that.
It's really wild. They're getting really smart.
Yeah. Oh, really? We have a lot of stereotyped speech anyway. Like it's not like we are saying super unique things all the time. Like a lot of my phrases are thrown out in general. I mean, I don't think it'd be very good saying very specific things, but the way I start out with my emails and stuff, it's very like, hey guys, so I just have a question for you. Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Business speak is easy to guess what you're going to be saying, or sometimes it suggests things and I'm like, wow, that is phrased better than how I was going to phrase it. But if you wanted a computer to write poetry, I think you'd find it much more difficult to do that. And like I try, especially with poetry or with like prose or writing, you can use words that don't really work on their own, but within the context they do. I use the word carnate instead of like incarnate. It's just carnate, and it means the same thing really, but Apple's iPhone didn't recognize the word. It's like, you mean incarnate? I'm like, no, I don't. I mean what I'm fucking writing. And so I had to Google it. I'm like, this is a real word, right? And Google's like, yeah, it is. Just most people don't use it. I'm like, that's exactly what I want. I want it to mean what I need it to mean, and if it's a rare word like that somehow makes it even better.
What does that word mean?
Carnate?
Yeah.
It means like of the flesh. So like I wrote something a long time ago that was like beauty incarnate, So that's being like, you are the flesh version of beauty as a whole.
Okay. So reincarnate is to re-enter the flesh
Yes.
in a way.
You know what? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Incarnation. What's an incarnation?
That's
That's a word.
that would be the active verb, right?
Yeah, something like that. Well, I've heard people say like, "Oh, I need to get some incarnations."
Wait, what?
Incarnate. I think I've heard that.
Carnations are a flower.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Or maybe I'm just hearing carnations. I don't know.
maybe. I don't know. I've never heard them incarnation as a noun. This is on a Patreon episode, by the way. Where we can just cut the first 5 minutes of this episode and it can be its own episode
Yeah.
where we talk about language.
Language and dicks.
Well, we haven't talked about those yet.
Okay. We should have an episode about dicks.
I think that's 90% of our episodes. Episode 1 through 100 is the dick saga.
The dick saga.
Okay, you ready to actually start?
We should have a podcast where we talk about dicks, but it's just like dicks throughout history, like Dick Van Dyke.
All the Richards.
What's your podcast about? Dick. Okay, that doesn't sound
All right, I got one. Frankenstein's dick. Talk about it. Think about it. Frankenstein was a man all put together by other parts of other men. Did they use a dick?
Was it functional?
How did they choose the dick?
Hmm.
Do you think he was Dr. Frankenstein was out there and was like, well, we gotta get one that's smaller than mine.
Probably. Oh, also, was it one dick or was it multiple dicks?
Oh, I didn't even think of that. He could have a double dick.
Maybe triple. Maybe the head is different than the rest.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about the dick itself could be spliced together.
Yeah.
Wow, what a dickhead.
One ball might be different than the other.
Ooh, you could even have 3 balls.
I had a terrifying dream. It was a nightmare that the tip of my penis got cut off, and I sewed it back on together, but it wasn't working very well.
I can imagine. That sounds very painful.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad dream. So then I started using super glue to get it back together, and that didn't work because it was already kind of wet. So of course, the super glue doesn't dry, and it was a very awkward dream.
You could add Jesus spit on it.